All right, I'm going live. We're going to do this countdown. Here we go. Yo, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Logan here with Y.B.Normal, and this is the Class in Session podcast. We are back for season 3. I'm your host, Logan Taylor, my co host, my brother, my partner in crime, Mr. Dante Hampton, and we got a special guest for you all today. Dante, would you mind introducing our guest?
He's our special guest for today. Mr. Tim, can you just tell the people a little bit about yourself and where you come from and how you got to where you are right now?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. That is a little bit of history. I work in the Hamilton County School System in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm actually my 32nd year in education. I actually work at the district level as a district athletic director. We're a district of 78 schools, roughly 48,000 students, and 4,000 teachers. My path to education is probably a little different than most. But I really just want to go ahead and give a shout out to Logan. I was fortunate enough probably 3-4 years ago to be at a school, East Ridge High School, in which Logan came in and presented to our kids. And it was inspirational, a moment for many of our kids and for me as well. So we've kind of stayed in touch loosely for the last several years. And I reached out and said, hey, if you ever want to have me on podcast, I'd love to do it for you because I think you're doing great things for kids. I guess as far as I'm concerned, I was a vocational kid. I went to East Ridge High School in Chattanooga. I was a vocational kid, was going to be a welder. Actually had already interviewed with the local 43 plumbers and steam fitters and been accepted to their apprenticeship program. In late April there at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, came knocking and wanted to know if I wanted to play football. So I was a late signee at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. I went down 1 year. I was not really prepared. I don't think had the maturity to be in college yet. I'm not sure that academically I was ready because I had been on a vocational track. But I enjoy welding and I was a good welder, but not sure I was quite ready for college. Went 1 year, played football. I was one of the all you others. I got to spend a lot of time on the sidelines. I was a long snapper. At the end of my freshman year, I was to be honest, I had a 1.9 GPA, lost my scholarship. And so I looked at my dad, who was actually my high school football coach. My dad coached high school football for about 30 years. He was the head coach at East Ridge High School, played for him. I said, man, I really like going to college, Dad. And he said, I bet you do. He said, you apparently found pursuits other than the classroom. So I said, well, if I want to go to college, he says, will you figure out how to pay for it? 3 months later, I ended up in the United States Army. Served my country for 2 years active duty, 4 years in active reserve. When I got out of the military, I worked construction for about a year and decided that, I wanted to do something different. So I started back to school. Instead of a 1.9, I made Dean's List every semester. I think the military matured me and had me prepared and gave me the self-discipline I needed to complete my college degree. I was actually originally a business major. In my junior year, I converted to education. And like I said, been doing it for 32 years ever since. I got my master's and my EDS from Tennessee Tech up in Cookeville. So that's kind of my path. 30 years on the sidelines, head track coach, head football coach, was a wrestling coach once upon a time. couple state runner-up, never a state championship, but hopefully I impacted a lot of lives in a positive way. As I was telling Logan earlier, I was at alumni golf tournament today and ran into a lot of my former players, and it's just, it's awesome to kind of be proud of the young men that they've become. They've got families now, and to have them come up and tell you they love you, that's a special feeling. I know that was a lot, but I hope that answered your inquiry.
No, I think that's awesome. I first want to say,
did.
Coach, yeah, I definitely want to say thank you for your service first. And then secondly, I want to say thank you for your service to the next generation and these scholars, and working right in Hamilton County and doing some amazing work, and being the athletic director of the county now. Like that's a huge undertaking to overlook 48,000 students. And so I just want to say thank you for that and commend you for that and tip my hat and give you your flowers while we're on here.
Absolutely. Well, this is 2.5 years into the athletic director job. It's first ever athletic director in Hamilton County Schools. A lot of organizational things, trying to get things in place, and really just kind of finding my niche and figuring out what I can do and what I can make a difference is, and what I can't. So coaches' education is a big part of it. I look back to the way I was coached, and then I looked at the way I coached early in my career, and then I looked at the way I coached later in my career, and I'm probably two very different human beings. And when I started out in 1990 as a young assistant coach who was cocky and thought he knew everything about football, I'm 32 years in, and I realized the longer I do it, the less I know about football. So, and also track and field. So, yeah, it's kind of made that epiphany of going from Dave Ehrman calls it a transactional coach to a transitional coach. That whole, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? That's a transaction, and that doesn't really build relationships with kids. And you can see the same thing in the classroom between a transitional teacher and a transactional teacher. Here's your assignment. Make sure it's in here. I don't really get into your personal business. I don't know what's going on at home. But then when you have those teachers and those coaches that are truly transitional, you're taking interest in your kids. You're getting to learn your kids. You're getting to know about them. You know about their home life. You try to help them grow as a person, and then all of a sudden you realize, maybe making an A is not the most important thing, or winning a ball game is not the most important thing. It's, where is this kid from when I met them to where they are when they move on from you? And that's that transitional piece. And I think that's becoming more the trend in modern athletics, and as in the classroom. We call it social emotional learning, all of these tags. But the real, I guess, takeaway after 32 years, if kids know you care about them, they're going to bust their tail for you. They're going to do the best they can. If you don't show that you care about kids, then it's going to be an uphill battle, whether you're teaching math or coaching football or the principal of the building. So that's I guess little me in a nutshell of my career, of where I was to where I am now. And that's what I try to instill to our young coaches is that, look, here, I know you want to win, but the yelling, the cussing, the cursing, the stomping, the getting mad, it's not what it's really about. And I think even more in today's society than ever, because there's so many challenges these kids walk through the door with that I never, as a student athlete, ever had to endure. So I think being cognizant of that is always a big plus for our coaches here in Hamilton County.
Okay. All right. I love that. That's great information. Some questions that I want to ask you, Coach, is so I know you said you've been doing this. You started coaching back in the 90s. And if it's one thing that, I've noticed, especially doing the work that I do, is that the students have changed. They changed so much, right? You know, when
Yeah.
you started in the 90s, the students that were there that that you impacted then to the students that, before when you were still in the school, right? Like those students were completely different, right?
Absolutely.
And so the question that I want to ask you is that how did you stay up to date with the latest trends with making an impact in the way that you did?
Gosh, I think that's part of being a good teacher or a good coach or just a good person is you've got to learn to adapt. What's the lizard that changes its colors as its surroundings is you've got to be able to adapt to your environment and understand trends and understand changes in society and changes in culture. And we've had a lot, and I personally don't think a lot of them are good. And I think a lot of them have created some really, really big challenges for public education or just education in general. Go back into the 70s, the decline of the American family, the economy where parents are having to work two jobs, have less time to spend with their children. These are all major factors in the opportunity that affects the opportunity of learning. Kids are bringing a lot more baggage through the schoolhouse door with them now than they did 30 years ago. And, it's, I don't know that there's necessarily right answers or wrong answers, but I think we need to strive to do everything we can to accommodate the society in which we serve.
I love that. I love that. Dante, come on, man, jump in.
All right, Mr. Tim, that was good information. With the way Hamilton County is going, how do you feel as far as academics and athletics? Like, how are they in a line in today's time with the way Hamilton County? I would say a lot more star athletes are getting recognized, and a lot more just notoriety is coming to Chattanooga. Do you feel there's
Uh,
a fine line, or should I say, uh,
I think,
a
yeah, to
strategic
answer your
point of
question,
view?
I think there's always been this stigma of the dumb jock, throughout time, and but the reality is that it's not. Generally, as a rule of thumb, your athletes have higher GPAs, they have higher standardized test scores, they have better attendance rates, they have a lower dropout rate, they have they read at a higher level, they work better in a team setting. So to me, a lot of times we try to create this divide between academia and athletics when in reality, if used properly hand in hand, they can definitely help elevate the performance. So early in my career, I coached some really great athletes that when I got to the school were already behind academically and never caught up. So under the NCAA requirements of the late 90s, early 2000s, they were non-qualifiers because of the test score. They couldn't pull a 21 on the ACT. They didn't have the 3.0 GPA or a combination, right? Most colleges have kind of began to waive that ACT score. But at the end of the day, there's, I think, more opportunity. I think there's been some focus by our recreational coaches and our youth coaches in the Chattanooga area, which have helped elevate our level of performance and has carried over into our middle schools and high schools. And I think people will just start to kind of recognize that there's some talent at Chattanooga. For a long time, I coached in Georgia for several years. I would have colleges and universities come on our campus that I never saw when I coached in Tennessee, because Georgia has that stigma of producing more Division I athletes than any other state, and it's usually between Georgia, Florida, Texas, and California. And but the past 5-6 years in a row, Georgia's
Right.
just been banging these Division I athletes out. So I think as we became, we had Madison Hayes compete in the Final Four last night. She's a product of East Hamilton. We had a young lady by the name of Kellum that played volleyball at Florida, once again from East Hamilton. We've had the Bullock brothers, both All-Americans at Nebraska. I think Daniel, I always confuse him, or Josh played for the Saints for several years, Sammy Seamster. I mean, the list is starting to grow and becoming more frequent. And I'm sure I left somebody out that have competed at the highest level. And it seems to become more frequent as a result. People are like, hey, we might ought to go to Chattanooga and check out what type of athletes. And of course, I left one out. The Minister of Pain, Mr. Reggie White. So, so it's had some really, really great athletes, not just in football and volleyball and basketball. Several basketball stars have come in there as well. So hopefully they're starting to look closer. And as they look closer, they're starting to find more athletes.
I love that. Let me ask you, since we're talking about sports and everything like that, Coach, what have you noticed versus you being an AD now versus when you were a coach, right? What are some of the challenges that you see are different versus with you being an AD now and then a coach when you were a coach, right? Because now with you being an AD, again, you're over 48,000. And let me make sure people understand this. He is over 48,000 students.
Make sure you get that right.
78 schools. Like I need people to understand this.
I've got 38 athletic directors under, and then roughly about 1,100 coaching positions under. So it's a pretty big challenge. I've had to learn a lot about other sports I didn't know a lot about. I'll be honest with you. I've had to learn about tennis and golf and bringing lacrosse on board. We're getting ready to start girls flag football this year through the generosity of the Titans organization. Just middle school softball, middle school baseball, all of these things I've had to learn about. So, that's, as a school-based AD and a football coach, I really didn't have to worry about, most of the head coaches took care of their own stuff. I just made sure their paperwork was done. Now I've got to make sure that, 1,100 people have their 1,200 people have their paperwork and their credentialing done through the National Federation, and their concussion and their sudden cardiac arrest, annual certification, all those things. So it's probably taught me a lot more about my organizational or lack thereof organizational skills. So I've had to definitely work on polishing those.
I love it. And so now let me ask you this. How have you been able to balance? Because it's a lot, right? To be an AD at the level that you're at, right? Because you're the top dog. And so if anything happens, right, they're not blaming Logan. They're not blaming Dante. They blaming Coach James, right? So how have you been able to balance that work-life balance, right, with your personal life and work as well?
So, I'll let you know, I'm married. I've been married for 30. I've got 3 daughters. My twins are seniors, will be seniors in high school next year. Those 30 years I spent time with other people's kids. I kind of regret not spending that time. And that's one thing I tell our young coaches, man, you got to make time for your family and your kids and concentrate on them, because at the end of the day, that's who's going to be there. The last 2.5 years, I've had much more time with my family and my own kids, and it's something I cherish. But I guess the big takeaway when you talk about burning the blame, whatever, as a high school coach, I was very driven. I don't mean this probably sounds ugly, but I would say kill it and move on. So if I had a task, I took care of it and I moved on. I was I'm almost ADHD, very compartmentalized. I got to take care of this task, and then I'll move on to the next one. And at the district level, with everything coming from all sides, I've had to learn, I'm going to have to set this one aside. I've got to prioritize this emergency or this issue, and I can circle back around. and get to this. The Earth's not going to explode if I don't get to this one topic today. Maybe I can put it on my calendar and get to it tomorrow. So I guess that's the big change. And I'll be honest with you, the first 6 months of my job, drove me insane because I couldn't kill it and move on. There wasn't enough hours in the day to take care of everything.
Absolutely. I love it. Come on, Dante.
All right, Mr. James, can you just simply talk about the mental health aspect of our athletes in today's time, as far as with education, because it's becoming a big deal. Kids are getting burnt out a lot faster. Education. So can you just talk about a little bit about that and how that has affected maybe more so the schools, and how does that go hand in hand?
So, I probably attribute that to multiple things, and I don't think it's one item that you can stick your finger on and say this is the culprit. I think COVID did a lot to really create some mental health issues in our kids. I mean, they were isolated from their peers for in some cases up to 2 years. They became dependent upon instant gratification with social media, everything at their fingertips with cell phones. That is a very big impact. From the time when I started coaching to now, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have that cell phone issue, and probably the reality matter until about 2008, maybe or maybe 2010 or 12 before it really started becoming an issue. I had something come across my Facebook feed the other day. It said, teacher did an experiment. She had an 1.5-hour block schedule. She said, okay, I want everybody to turn your phones on and put your alerts on. And within an 1.5-hour period, out of a class of 32 kids, there were 4,100, I believe, 30 something, either text notifications, calls, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, in one class period. And we as administrators and as teachers, we are battling that right now. We're battling that constant interruption, that constant, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out there, Logan. Stimulant. It creates conflict. It creates stress. If I'm at work and I'm sitting there top and my phone keeps going on, I'm like, man, it distracts me. And those are all things that create stress within these children's lives. I mean, I'm 60 years old and I struggle with it creating stress in my life. So I think the COVID, I think the cell phones, I think one of the things I've coached at both ends of the spectrum. I've coached in very affluent communities, and I've coached in relatively lower socioeconomic income communities. And one of the other things that creates a lot of stress in these kids' lives are food insecurities. A lot of our kids go home hungry every day. A lot of our kids don't know where their next meal's coming from. And you take the food insecurity, the isolation from COVID, the decline of the American family. A lot of our kids don't know where they're going to lay their head from night. They might be at grandma's one night, might be at mom's, might be at dad's, they might be at mama number two's. I mean, they lack consistency in their life. They're worrying about things that I never had to worry about when I was 15, 16, even 20 years old. I didn't have to worry about those things. That's, I think, what's creating those combination of all those, I think, is what are creating mental health issues within our society and our kids. And we also have a society that likes to place blame. It's like you said, so you're the district athletic director, you're going to get blamed for it, right? And we're getting ready to put in 3 turf fields. Yep. Everybody thinks it's a great idea. What happens if kids if we put it in, they get hurt, who they're going to blame? They're going to blame me. But that's that's part of my position, and I accept that with the role that I accept. But that's probably one of the tough things about coaching nowadays too. And you're actually seeing a decline in a couple of sports. One being wrestling. There's nobody to blame there, right? You walk out there, you get beat. It's one guy beats the other guy, one girl beats the other girl, and so we've kind of seen a decline in numbers in recent years. Football numbers are also going down. I think the injury concerns, but then again, that whole team concept, it's real easy to blame the guy standing next to you. And if you look at your better teams aren't doing that 9 out of 10 times. 9 out of 10 times, your better teams play together and they support each other and they get on each other's tail when they need to. But at the end of the day, they don't blame each other.
Okay. Now, with that in context, do you think with the amount of schools and the amount of students that you look over, do you think there's enough support as far as systems, whether it be like normal programs or, they used to have a DARE program, they have Candy Castle program. Do you think there's enough programs out there with the amount of schools that Hamilton County specifically is pumping out as they continue to grow and as people continue to come into the city?
I'll be honest with you, that's probably something I've learned more about in my position than I ever had at the school-based level. I think there's lots of support organizations and opportunities for our kids. Could there be more? Absolutely. At the end of the day, public education is public education. It's funded by the public. When you have 78 schools and it costs $3 million to put a roof on a school, and that superintendent has to decide between, okay, we're going to add 10 coaches at each school, or we're going to put a roof on whatever school it is. That's the hard decision that we can't have kids or computer labs with leaky roofs, and we've got to be able to provide for the basic educational needs. So a lot of times athletics kind of gets bumped to that private sector or to the back burner, just simply out of necessity.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Just it did, and Logan can attest to this. So we've had a bunch of people on the podcast. We've had people where they have a huge district, but small amount of schools where they combine schools. And what we've noticed is a lot of people have smaller amount of schools, but more students with more support. Now, as Chattanooga, we have tons of schools. Do you think that we should cut down on support that in the sense of growing academically and growing?
Yeah, that's kind of a double-edged sword. If you look at this classification, I'll give you an example with our high schools. We have 2 5A schools, actually 3 5A schools in Hamilton County. You've got Ooltewah, East Hamilton, and Howard. If you go to Rutherford County or you go to Knox County, Blount County, they're all 5 and 6A schools. So that tells you we've got the average less than 1,000 students in each one of our high schools. What would a Brainerd and East Ridge consolidated look like? What would a Howard and Lookout Valley consolidated look like, or a Higson and a Red Bank, Sell Creek and Saudi Day, East Ham and Ooltewah. I mean, we could definitely develop some powerhouses athletically, and economically it makes sense. But what happens when we say, okay, we're gonna close Brainerd and we're gonna close East Ridge? What do the East Ridge people say? What do the Brainerd people say? The alumni come out of the woodwork. That's my school. We're not going to do that. I mean, it's a politically charged issue. Eventually, we will probably have to have some very, very real talks about that, and some decisions will have to come from much higher than my level on the food chain. But just when you look at the funding for public education, you look at the age of many of our school buildings, those are all things that will have to be taken in consideration. And again, I'm not being an advocate for that, but I'm also a realistic, person that's looked at what's happened around us at neighboring systems. Catoosa County's got 3 high schools. Walker County has 2. Bradley County has 3. So are we headed in that direction? As we build new construction, probably. I don't know. I'll see that within my career, but I think it will probably eventually happen.
Absolutely. So let me ask you one more mental health question, Coach, and then we'll move on. Okay.
Yes,
How
sir.
do you address and support students who are struggling with mental health issues, especially and I'm gonna say at the sports level? We know that mental health is running rampant in today's climate, especially with like when we talked about COVID earlier. But what are some tools that some of the coaches could use to be able to help some of those players that are having some mental health issues, or they may be dealing with you may have a student that's a football player and they deal with a lot of concussions and different things like that. Like, what are some tools of support that they could use or that you've used in the past to be able to support those students?
So I think we've got a multi-tiered approach to that. First of all, I don't know if you recall Heath Esslinger, used to be the wrestling coach at UTC. Heath and a buddy of mine named Eric Phillips. Eric was the athletic director at Cleveland High School. They started a program called A Better Way Athletics. They've subsequently been bought out by a large concern. They've moved to Virginia, but it's a coach's education. It's also a parent education course, and it's a series of videos that talks about, hey, how do you talk to a kid? What to do when a kid's having issues. If they're having a mental health crisis, you have counselors in your school. You have resources that are available for you. So the Better Way Athletics program is something we require of all of our coaches. There's an annual training. It's I think 8 videos that they watch. And then there's also one for parents called The Ride Home. Hey, what do you say to your kid after a win or after a defeat? How do you talk to your kid? Because sometimes parents are as a coach, we're my own worst enemy, not because they didn't care about their kid, but they just, what, you didn't make that 3-point, you didn't roll your fingers on the arc, what in the crap are you thinking? And they tear the kid's heart out. First of all, they're already upset because of the loss, or let's talk about playing time. Why aren't you getting any playing? That coach is, and start talking about the coach and how he has a lack of intelligence and his family lineage and everything else. And then all you're doing is giving that kid a negative perception of his coach. So those are all things to help handle parents, coaches, kids. As far as the mental health part of it, we do have trained professionals in Hamilton County schools. We have actually added in each of our schools what are called seed coaches or social emotional coaches, that if kids have an issue, hey, we can pull them out. Hey, man, what's going on? Well, mom went to jail, or mom and dad are getting a divorce, or grandma just died. All of these things. And I say all that, but it goes back to my original statement. If you're that transactional coach and you've got that relationship with that kid's going to feel comfortable coming to you. And if you know that kid, you're going to be in tune to that kid. Say, hey, what's going on with Billy? Something's not up. And he's coming, hey, Bill, man, everything okay? What's going on with you? And, you want to talk about something? A lot of times, no. But this, your kids if you develop those relationships. And if you don't feel qualified, then you've got professionals within your building or within our system that are capable. Grief counselors, we have those available within our system. There's all kinds of support there nowadays. But nothing replaces that interpersonal one-on-one relationship.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly.
And as far as concussions, sorry about that.
No.
We have a contract in Hamilton County Schools with Erlanger Sports Medicine. So we have certified athletic trainers in all of our high schools. Even within our concussion training, our parents have to read concussion protocol, look for signs, symptoms, and warnings of concussion. Parents read that every year. They sign it. So if Junior's coming home or Junette is coming home and they're acting a little goofy or whatever, or their eyes are not dilating properly, those are like some telltale signs that parents can look for to help with the concussion. And then, of course, the state of Tennessee has a concussion protocol that's called a return to play protocol, that should a kid get a concussion, they have to go through certain steps before they're allowed to return to play.
I love
not to exclude seeing a neurologist.
Right. I love that. That's awesome. That's good, Coach, because I think that's important because, like you said, a lot of parents that, they're down, they'll start talking bad about the coach. You ain't getting this, you ain't getting that, and, bad mouthing the coach and different things like that. And then I also think that, knowing the proper protocol, especially when you have students that get concussions playing sports and different things like that, things like that are important.
You were saying you ain't getting, I call it, we almost got that, I got to get mine generation. I got to get mine. And that whole era of, hey, you're a part of the team, it's about the team, that's eroded in our society. And, and I think it's the special coaches that can overcome that and get those kids that, because they're seeing it on social media, they're seeing it in the pros, they're seeing it with the NIL, they're seeing all these things. And you've got all of these people pulling in every different directions on them. And so it's, they're kids. They're still, their mind's not fully developed yet. But, if you got everybody around you telling you got to get yours, then you're going to listen to the adults in your life. But if you can create a culture of we're going to get ours, then there is the challenge of being that great coach. We're going to get ours. If we get yours, you're going to get yours too. So.
Yep. Facts. Absolutely. Now you really in your bag. You're really in your bag, Coach James. I really appreciate that. So let me ask you this: before becoming an athletic director, how did you address and support students that dealt with trauma or difficult life circumstances in the classroom?
Well, it varied. It depended on the situation. I was never one of these coaches that had a set of written rules that said, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, because I found early in my career that painted me in a corner, and it's kind of like a one size fits all. It doesn't, I've got kid that to this day, I still think about him, and he's in federal prison right now. And I go back and I think, what could I have done different with this kid to maybe prevent him from going down that path? But at the end of the day, I feel confident I did everything I could. We kept him in school. We kept, in spite of many, many challenges. Now, when I say many, many challenges, most kids would have give up, and they would have probably quit in 10th grade. So I'm done with it. But we worked with this kid. It takes a village to raise the child. His English teacher worked with him, his math teacher, the administration. We all worked together to get this kid through. Now, at the end of the day, he made some bad decisions after he got out of here, and it is what it is. But for every one disappointment of, like that kid, there were probably 4 or 5 that have went on to be great employees, great. I coached quite a few girls in track, great mothers and great fathers, and just great people all together. So the thing is, you can't do it alone as a coach in today's society. You can't be that one thing. If you're in that school environment and you're the old school football coach trying to rule the roost and go to teachers about, well, he needs help, you need to do this with his grades. And no, look, I've had plenty that we found that after practice, tutoring was much more effective than any other time. Because look, if you're not meeting it academically, we're going to have your math teacher come in. She's going to be more than happy to sit down with you. for an hour after practice. And, you would be amazed at how 90% of those kids' grades would skyrocket simply because they didn't want to have to go to after practice tutoring. Because a lot of it is, with high school kids, is just being lazy and not doing their work, not turning their assignments in on time. But if they know they've got accountability and consequences, then I think that's where we lack a lot in our modern society, is that, we keep trying to give too many, not, I don't want to say too many chances, but second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth chances with minimal consequences. So, consequences, I don't think they need to be severe in most cases, but I think they need to be, they need to make their point. That was kind of a diatribe. I got off on a rabbit trail there, but it takes a village.
Absolutely. No, you good, Coach. Listen, this is a safe space. This is all about you. I want people to know about your journey. I want people to know, especially, with you being the AD, the first AD in the district, at the district level. Like, I want people to know, like, what goes on, and you giving them that insight, because it's important. Because a lot of times people that don't work in schools, right, they have a misconception of what goes on in the school. And so I think that, it's important, for you to tell your story, for you to tell your journey, to inspire people, right? There's going to be somebody that's going to watch this and they're like, hey, listen, I want to be an athletic director. So what does that look like? How do I do it? How do I build the relationships? Oh, I need to learn about mental health. I need to learn about CTE. I need to learn about all of these different things. And I think that stuff like this and what you're saying and the value that you're giving is very, very important. So I just want to say again, like, thank you. I want to give you your flowers. And listen, this is a safe space. You can go on a tangent if you want to. This is your world. We just living in it. And, we just doing our thing.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest challenges to interscholastic athletics right now is the financial component. And I would challenge everyone listening, anyone that hears this message, is to, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine. I won't divulge his name. He's a well-to-do business owner in the Chattanooga area, and his kid went to private school, but he has a school here in Hamilton County that he gives to substantially every year to an athletic program. And we talked about creating something called Pick Your Passion. I don't care if you are a band person, a concert choir person, a Model UN person, a baseball, pick a school, pick your passion. If you're not in a position to give money, everybody can go out and run a weed eater or clean a bathroom or paint a door. The things that brings the community back into our programs, and you don't have to have gone to school there, but there's kids in needs. There's programs, and we have some programs that struggle a lot more than others in our system. I mean, everybody, I think every system in the country probably has some schools that are a little more affluent than others, but we do have kids in need, and we have programs in need. So just pick a passion and help them out.
All right, Mr. James, we got a hot seat question for you.
Go ahead. Go.
No, what'd you say? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll give you an example. The YMCA has a summer feeding program. When I was at East Ridge, we fed our kids. We worked out 3 days a week before the dead period, 4 days a week after. We fed our kids breakfast and lunch every day. My first year back to East Ridge, we had 22 kids in summer school. When I left, I think we had 3 after 6 years. We had about a 50% attendance rate to summer workouts. We instituted the summer feeding program through the YMCA, and we went up to about a 94% attendance rate. Goes back to the food insecurity thing, man. Take care of your kids, love your kids, feed them, let them know that there's somebody in their life that cares about them, and they'll run through brick walls for you.
Good message right there. Good message.
I'm ready for the hot seat.
All right, so we got about 15 more minutes left. But we
Right.
do a hot seat question for you. Now you can say I
Yeah.
don't want to answer. We have had people who say, I just prefer not to. We actually had who was that, a principal, Logan? Was that a principal? We had a principal who said, I prefer not to. But in your case, we're gonna ask, if the Department of Education called you and said, Mr. James, you have the authority, you can change one thing, and it could be anything in education, whether it be a direct impact on Hamilton County or whatever, you can change it. Here you go. Just sign right here. You can change it. What would it be?
Wow. Couple things come to mind. One would be, of course, a funding issue. We had an unlimited checkbook. We'd all have field houses of gold and baseball diamonds and softball diamonds that were impeccable and second to none. I mean, that would be that's the low hanging ask, I guess. Even though economically it's not really a possibility. One of you look at the Chattanooga area, we have a disproportionate number of private schools in the Chattanooga area when looking at the other major metro areas in the state of Tennessee, and we have a large drain on our student athlete pool from our privates, and one of the major reasons that parents will give you is that their facilities are second to none, but that also kind of brings in my second thing is I would like to see us be more consistent with our discipline within our school buildings. As a coach, it's tough. It's tough if you're running a discipline program, but there's issues going on within your building, and that's not talking about any school. It's just when we look at this, we're talking about nationwide trends. That if you called somebody in Gwinnett County or somebody down in Travis Lake, Texas, I think they're going to allude to this is the modern challenge of public education. Is we've got a generation of kids that, not all kids, I mean, but we've got a generation of kids who were almost feral for 2 years, right? At home during COVID, and all of a sudden they're back, 2 years later, back 3 years later, back in the school building being held accountable. It's brought some challenges. So just consistency of discipline across the board, and unlimited funding. How's that? Unlimited funding. I like that.
That's a good one. I haven't heard the discipline one though, Lo. Have you heard that? I haven't heard that one. I heard a
No,
lot of
nobody
stuff.
said, nobody's given the discipline one. Nobody said that.
That's pretty good.
Mhm.
We have heard
There's
the funding.
We've got a lot of kids that think they're grown to use. I'm grown, and you I don't have to listen to you. That top mentality. But again, it's still just a small minority of kids. It's not the majority of them. Majority of kids, and they're just happy to go to school, good to glad to see their friends, and are there to get an education. So we've got some really, really great things going on in Hamilton County schools. I think everything is trending in the right direction. I think we all have challenges in life as individuals, but also any type of organization that you're looking at almost 50,000 students and 6,000 employees. It's a large what's the word I'm looking for, bureaucracy. Anytime you get something that large, that's a lot of moving parts, and sometimes things don't work well, but most of the time they do. Like I said, I think we do a really, really good job in our system. I think we can do a much better job in our system. If you show me the persons that's satisfied, I'm going to show you somebody that's not going to be a champion. So I think we can never be satisfied where we're at, and continue to stress to get better.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. We got probably 2 more questions. The next one we have is for somebody who is trying to be an AD or get in the path of dealing with athletics and education. What would you say some of the best practices as far as or what kind of type of path would they need in order to get towards being an AD and things of that nature?
Well, I will say this, and I would be remiss if I didn't say I kind of fell into an AD position. Catherine Neely was a longtime athletic director at Eastridge High School, 40 years, and she became ill, fell on me. However, I had watched her for many, many years, and kind of she was my mentor. So when the time came, I was prepared. A lot of it is just educating yourself about the TAAA here in the state of Tennessee. They are our governing TAAA and the TMSAA. They are our governing body. And so knowing what you can do and can't do, what things have to be done every year, what type of paperwork needs to be done, those are all skill sets that need to be learned. I think the biggest thing you do, though, is if you've got to be, how do I say this? If you take the same principles that you do with working with your kids and caring about your kids as you do with your and do the same with your coaches, then it's going to make you a more effective leader. And anybody can learn the rules, right? But working with your coaches, uplifting your coaches, supporting your coaches, that's one of the big keys. We did just add, there is a professional organization called the NIAAA, which is the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. And then we have a state association here. They've recently added a add-on certificate at UTC in athletic administration, athletic management, that would be part of, if you were going to go in and get an educational master's, then you can get the add-on certificate of the athletic administration. And those will be the courses through the NIAAA. So that will begin next year. So that's a great opportunity. If you're a young coach, you want to go back and get that master's, and you want to get that add-on certificate, then that's going to help prepare you for taking that role as athletic director.
Got it. So for all our listeners out there, he just provided some good info for teachers, young coaches. He did say they will be adding a certificate out there, which will help further along you and guide you in the right direction. Mr. James, I'm just thankful that you even came on here as well.
Find a mentor. Find a mentor that's a seasoned athletic director, and it just like, look, in life, I would recommend that to anybody, whether you're going to be a banker, a lawyer, a plumber, a carpenter, a ditch digger. Find a mentor in that field of endeavor that you want to follow. Pick a good one, but pick a mentor and work to be the best you can do. I guess that's my final advice on how to become a successful anything in life.
I love that. So, Coach, before we get up out of here, and we close out, would you just leave? I mean, of course, you just gave our listeners a gem, but would you mind just leaving them with some words of encouragement? And then we'll close it out. I'll close it out after that. And then if you have anything else that you want to say, you can say it. And then I'll close it out after you finish with that. So would you mind leaving them with some words of encouragement?
I guess if I could just sum it all up, is that looking at our society, what we need to do is we need to love one another, and not something you hear very often coming out of a old crusty coach's mouth. But if we can just love one another, then everything else becomes easy. Even our disagreements become easy at that point. And I think that's something that we're lacking in this world right now, is love for our fellow man and love for one another. If I have a genuine love for you and care about you, and I care about you, we can still argue and fuss and cuss and fight. But at the end of the day, we got that mutual respect because we know we care about each other. So I guess that's my challenge, my goal, my dream was be for just us to love one another and lift each other up.
All right, y'all heard him. He said, "Hey, love thy neighbor." That's basically what Coach said.
Golden rule.
He said, "Love one another." So listen, guys. This is the Class in Session podcast, man. We had our special guest, Mr. Coach Tim James. He is the Hamilton County. Let me make sure people understand.
Make sure you tell this stuff right now. Make sure you tell everybody what exactly is now.
He is the first Hamilton County athletic director over the whole district. 78 schools, 48,000 students. When you see him in the community, give him his flowers, tell him thank you, because I know that it's not easy and I know that it's extremely hard. And we're going to close it out. And so, as always, listen, this is the Class in Session podcast. I'm your host, Logan Taylor, my brother Dante Hampton. Listen, y'all get with us. And as always, Y.B.Normal.
Well, you can be extraordinary.
All right, we'll see y'all soon. Love y'all. Peace.